Hello everyone and welcome to another Top 5 Records video. As the year ends, I've made a lot of videos in which I look back on what we gained in 2024. But not only have we gained, we have also lost. So this video is an in memoriam to look back on the great artists that we have lost in 2024. Now, without further ado, let's start off this list with, for me, the first great big loss of 2024. I'm talking about Melanie. She left us in earlier this year. Now, Melanie is, in my opinion, one of the most important and impressive singer-songwriters from the 60s and early 70s. She wrote so many incredible songs. I have her first album here. I believe some of the songs she wrote when she was 16 or 17. Songs like Mama Mama, which is heartbreakingly beautiful. Animal Crackers is really good. Close to It All. I really loved Harold. In the Hour, I'm Back in Town, very fun song. And she ends off this record with Merry Christmas, which for me is very emotional to end off the year with. Also, this is my most personal loss this year because I was actually working on a documentary about her, and I will continue and I'll try to make something out of it. Although, of course, because she passed away, we do not have everything filmed that we want to. Melanie contacted me after seeing a documentary I made about Herman Brood, the Dutch rock and roll star who also went to the United States. The documentary called Unknown Brood, and she contacted me. And when I first met her, I was just taken aback by her charisma, her charm, her wit, and her lovely sensitivities. She was such a open, honest, sincere, and intelligent person. She's one of the most incredible people I have worked with and met. And I get a little bit emotional because even although it's almost a year ago since she passed away, she made quite the impact. Also in honesty. And that is what will stick with me from Melanie, her honesty. I was in her hotel room in Hamburg, and I was sitting there in her room and we were talking about a show she was about to do. And there was also the manager of Donovan. Donovan was also in the hotel. And that the manager was talking about all sorts of ideas to make money. Like he had a picture of Donovan and George Harrison and how much you could ask for that. And that's not, I do not want to disregard it because it's tough to make a living when you're a musician, even when you have been a very successful musician. So that man was on a nice track. And in this world of commercial ideas, Melanie grabbed her guitar and played the song Ruins, in which she talks about how interesting it is that people visit ruins on holidays. Even the Colosseum is a ruin. It's just a fragment of how big and grand it once was. And she was actually referring to her generation of artists. And she suggested that she would want to sing the song together with Keith Richards, who the guitar player and composer and a lot of things of the Rolling Stones, because he was in love with the song Brand New Key, which is on this album. Gorgeous, gorgeous song as well. And she was constantly so smart and she could write so beautifully. That song Ruins, I really hope her family will release it one day, because that is one of those moments in which you notice that she was, near the end, just as creative, as smart, and as witty as she was when she was 16 and 17 years old. If you're new to Melanie and you want to start off, this is a great way to start off, but I would also like to advise you this one. Candles in the Rain. I think this is one of the best albums of the 70s. Not a single bad song here. So gorgeously produced by her, also late by her husband who passed away a couple of years before her, which has such a beautiful full sound. So many incredible songs. For example, I'm holding, for example, Leftover Wine, Ruby Tuesday, the Stones cover. What have they done to my song, Ma? Candles in the Rain, Lay Down. It's a masterpiece. So, first to talk about Melanie. She's greatly missed. Second, Eric Carmen. I do not have any records by Eric Carmen. He's the only one in this video from who I do not have in my collection. And actually I should, because what he did with the song All By Myself is of a mesmerizing beauty. The fragility, the power, writing it and singing it. And he's one of those artists that for the next year, 2025, I will dive into. Next, also someone I was really shocked by when he passed away, because he was not even that old. It is Steve Harley, also known from Steve Harley and Cockney Rebel. And he is one of my favorite vocalists, not only vocal-wise. You might know him from the song Come Up and See Me, Make Me Smile, or, for example, here in Europe, and especially in the Netherlands, his song Sebastian was very popular. Sebastian is on this record, his first album, and he was 24 years old, and he made a masterpiece of glam rock with songs like Sebastian, but also ending it off with Death Trip, an epic orchestral, well, it has an orchestra, an epic beyond any recognition. I mean, one of the epic wise, it can measure to songs like the Prophet song from Queen. Perhaps even it can measure to Bohemian Rhapsody. It is really that class and quality of glam rock. Not only did he make this album, he also made this masterpiece. The second album with Cockney Rebel, the Psychomoto, songs like Sweet Dreams, Mr. Soft, very good song, also a hit song. Cavalier, Bed in the Corner, and ending off with Tumbling Down. Oh dear, look what they've done to the blues, the blues, the blues. I saw him perform live a couple of years ago here in Amsterdam at Q Factory, and I was just stunned. This man, it was I believe 2016 or 2017, he actually played a David Bowie song in memory of Bowie, Absolute Beginners. And although in the first song I heard him search for the right tone, because he started out flat, the moment he had it, he was in control of the audience. He was in control of everything, and he ended that perfectly crafted show off with Tumbling Down. One of those artists who at the end was still a sparkling, fabulous performer. If you want to know more about his extraordinary live capacities, check out this long lost and I do not understand why this was disregarded at the time, live album, Face to Face. This is the record that made me fall in love with Steve Harley and Cockney Rebel. It opens with Here Comes the Sun, then you got Love's a Prima Donna, Mad Mad Moonlight, Red as a Mean Color. Here you hear the diversity of his voice, the powerful moments on one side and the fragility. I mean, you can almost hear him crackle on certain songs. And his songwriting skill, I mean, this record may contain the best of his writings, although Death Trip is not there. But the way he creates an ambience on Sebastian, the way Tumbling Down has this echo of collaborative melancholia, it is just so good. It is so sad that he's lost. He also had a number one hit in the 80s because he was the Phantom in the original Phantom of the Opera single. He never got to play him because I believe it was Andrew Lloyd Webber who was afraid that vocally he might not endure during the tough repetition of live performing in a musical. But that single and the way he did it, the way he became the Phantom of the Opera in that song. Sing Once Again with Me. Gorgeous. Sadly, and we'll will sincerely miss him. At least I will. Another big name that we lost this year is Dwayne Addie. He is one of the rock and roll guitar heroes of the early day. As a matter of fact, I wasn't aware that he passed away this year, and it was after his passing that I bought this one in Amoeba Records in San Francisco. I was just thrilled to find this old first American mono pressing of this record, with songs like Walking and Twisting. I mean, as a matter of fact, this record has constant songs of twist in there. The record is called Twistin' and Twangin'. The titles are The Peppermint Twist, Twistin' and Twangin', Let's Twist Again. Great song! Let's Twist Again. Miss Twist, Sugar Time Twist, Exactly Like You. There has no twist in there, but then side 2, Walkin' and Twistin', Dear Lady Twist, Moanin' and Twistin', Country Twist, The Twist, Twistin' Off a Cliff. I mean, that's funny. That's funny. Great guitar player, and he was also a big influence on, for example, George Harrison. George Harrison was in complete awe of this man, and there's this beautiful story about a double booking of a studio. If you look up at YouTube, you'll find the story as told by George Harrison himself. Dwayne Addie. Then let's talk about a producer. This year, sadly, and way too young, Steve Albini passed. And Steve Albini is known for being the producer on essential albums, like Surfer Rosa by the Pixies, like In Utero by Nirvana, and PJ Harvey, Rid of Me. Now, the qualities of his work are hard to make vocal. I'm going to quote from his Wikipedia page because this really gives an impression. Albini did not see himself as a record producer, which he defined as someone completely responsible for a recording session. Instead, he described himself as an audio engineer. He left creative decisions to the artists and saw it as his job to satisfy them. Albini felt that putting producers in charge often destroyed records, and that the role of the recording engineer was to solve technical problems, not to threaten the artist's creative control. And he never sought album sleeve credit. Instead, Albini preferred the term recording engineer. He felt that his involvement in recording was unimportant and sometimes created public relations problems for acts, or could distract from the record. He refused to accept royalties, preferring to charge a fixed fee. At the time of his death, Albini charged $900 a day, less than a quarter of the rate a producer of his experience would typically charge. He would occasionally work unpaid if an act ran out of money, preferring not to leave work unfinished. Now, then you have a great big love for music, and then you're humble. Kurt Cobain was a fan, of course, of the Pixies, and he really wanted to work with him for this record, In Utero. And I think the sound of In Utero definitely reinvented Nirvana and what they were all about. After the, smooth production of Nevermind, I prefer this sound, definitely. And although Albini was humble, supposedly Kurt Cobain was not too thrilled to do double takes of his vocals for some of the songs. But those double takes, they work so well. Albini was serving him even if he was not, if he was reluctant to do so. Sadly and deeply missed. I'll get back to the list. Yes. Yes, Doug Ingie from Iron Butterfly. He was the organist and vocalist of Iron Butterfly. Also, he wrote the song that made Iron Butterfly famous and that was incredibly important for acid rock. It's this one, In Agata da Vida. Now, the album is called In Agata da Vida, and one side of this record is In Agata da Vida, 17 minutes long. Just sometimes switched with Won't you come with me? Brilliant song, brilliant writer, great vocalist. Sadly missed. Joe Egan from Steelers Wheel. He is one of the co-writers of that famous song "Stuck in the Middle with You." Now, I do enjoy this record. Core of me is, of course, stuck in the middle with you. Why? Well, as I just told you, I'm a filmmaker, so I'm also a film fan. And the first time I saw that ear cutting off scene in Reservoir Dogs by Quentin Tarantino, I just was completely struck by it. Now, luckily enough, the one cutting off the ear, Michael Madsen, I got to interview him a couple of years ago. And he told me that Quentin Tarantino desperately wanted Stuck in the Middle with You by Steelers Wheel, but he thought he could not get the rights because there were some issues. So he wanted to do the scene on a different song. To which Michael Madsen said, you know what, I'll give you another take just to do it on that song. Because if you really want that song, and I think it works, let's give it a shot. You can always cut it out and use the other one, but I'll do anything so you can make this song work. And he made it work. And they made a gorgeous scene with that brilliant, brilliant song by Joe Egan and Steelers Wheel. Then Jerry Miller. Jerry Miller is co-founder, guitarist, and vocalist of Moby Grape. And Moby Grape is one of the saddest stories in band histories. Why? Because they were stricken by bad luck. Now, a lot of bands had a lot of bad luck, but if you take a look at the late 60s San Francisco scene, these might be the best. As a matter of fact, I was co-writing the documentary screenplay for the Melanie documentary with one of the big Dutch specialists, someone who had worked for Dutch networks, who had interviewed and recorded with loads of the biggest names in the industry, who had been working as a journalist and as a reviewer since the 60s. And when I was talking about the Grateful Dead, he said, oh no, overrated. Though I still love the Grateful Dead, of course. He said, of the entire late San Francisco scene, Jefferson Airplane, Grateful Dead, there's only one big band. He said that blew me away when I saw them live in their original lineup. He said it's Moby Grape. Now, original Moby Grapes are hard to find, but luckily enough, earlier this year, I believe it was in Brooklyn, I found this, an original 2i Columbia copy with the flipping the bird, which was removed of later editions. This is indeed one of the best records from the late 60s and may even be my favorite. It's in competition there. Now it's definitely in competition, but it's one of the best San Francisco hippie records. Such brilliant songs, such brilliant songwriting, such a gorgeous sound. Jerry Miller, co-founder, guitar player, and vocalist of Moby Grape. He will be sadly missed. And another very, very big name. I'll take a sip of my... yeah, John Mayall passed away this year. The most well-known record by John Mayall is probably this one, the one he did with Eric Clapton. John Mayall is perhaps the biggest blues legend of the United Kingdom. Of course, he's in competition for that with Eric Clapton. But a lot of very important guitar players started off with John Mayall. And also his records are so good. He found such a unique identity within that British white blues. He had a certain cool, but it's so specific. When I think of the blues, I think of the Chicago blues, the heavy, gorgeous, deeply rooted sound. That deeply rooted, rough sound is nowhere near in British blues. But that doesn't mean that the British blues does not have a specific identity. There's a certain cool and a certain enjoyment that is so present on the work of John Mayall. This is a great album, but I'd also like to point out this one, Blues from Laurel Canyon. Just the cool breeze of this record. Brilliant artist. Brilliant artist. I actually had tickets for his last show here in the Netherlands 5 years ago, but he had to cancel. He had to cancel because of health issues. So I didn't get to see him. Sad. Well, another one of my heroes here. My dog is trying to get involved. But we just went for a run, so she don't worry about her. But she likes blues. I think that's it. She's a blues dog. Come, you can walk into the video. You can show hi. You can say hi. Hey, yeah, you can say hi. Okay, sorry. I'll continue. You're not here to watch my dog. One of my biggest country heroes. No. Now I'll continue the video. Kris Kristofferson. This is his first album, but this is the reissue cover from the Netherlands. Kris Kristofferson is one of the important country outlaws. He gave country a edge. This is not the smooth country about people who have everything going, who have a very plain view on life. Not that all the country has that, but this is the country that shows you the struggles, personal struggles, stories of people who know they are wrong. His lyrics are some of the best that I've ever heard, and I'm in complete awe. If you take a look at this record, he opens with "Blame It on the Stones," which is really funny. He's also a very funny, smart guy. He was actually how do you say that in English? Highly, he had a specific high intellect, so he got special scholarships because he was incredibly smart. Me and Bobby McGee is here, which was later on covered by his then ex, Janis Joplin. To Beat the Devil, it's a really good song. Help Me Make It Through the Night is one of the best songs from the 70s, honestly. Sunday Morning Coming Down is as well, which was recorded also by Johnny Cash. As a matter of fact, Johnny Cash gave him one of the most important opportunities of his life. Johnny Cash saw him when he was a janitor in Nashville, and he said to him, if you want to make a record deal, sober up, clean up your act, then we can talk, then I'll make arrangements. So what did Kris Kristofferson do? He sobered up. But to make sure and to show off that he was sober, he got a helicopter and landed it in the garden of Johnny Cash. Now, the folklore has it that Johnny Cash saw that and immediately signed him. Reality is that Johnny Cash was not at home. But he heard, of course, that Kris Kristofferson landed a helicopter in his garden, or in his yard. So after that, he started recording and he made this masterpiece. And not only that, he made another masterpiece straight after it. The Silver Tongue Devil and I. This is my first Kris Kristofferson album. So many incredible songs, brilliant songwriting, a voice that is completely unique, that sounds so solid, but obviously is hiding a certain insecurity. This song also has Epitaph, Black and Blue, which may be my favorite Kris Kristofferson song. He wrote that after Janis Joplin passed away, and this song is about Janis Joplin. With the opening line, her close friends have gathered, Lord, ain't it a shame? Grieving together, sharing the blame. Man, Lord, when she was dying, we let her down. There's no use crying. You can't help her now. I'm not reading this from the back. There are no lyrics on the back. It's trying to do this off my head, but it's yeah, confrontational. Confrontational. So near the end, talking about the people we lost. Incredible lyric. Also, there's some personal stuff involved. I'm not gonna bother you with that lyric is pretty intense. Kris Kristofferson. I'm gonna talk about somebody much younger, Liam Payne. Now, I know that in a lot of music circles, we do not talk about boy bands. And I'd like to shine a different light on that, because Liam Payne, One Direction. Yeah, I gotta pay tribute to him and to One Direction. Coincidentally, I'm gonna start this story off with the answer to One Direction, because One Direction was formed after, was it X Factor? Some of the people who didn't make it in the show or did not win the show were put together by the organizers to make One Direction. Now, John de Mol, who made The Voice, which is a Dutch guy and a Dutch original format, did the same thing. He picked somebody from New York who was very popular but didn't win it, from someone from Germany, someone from the UK, someone from Japan, and he put them all together in one house. And that one house, because he wanted to make the alternative to One Direction, is coincidentally on the island in Amsterdam where I live. So a couple of houses down the road, literally. Now they don't live there anymore. But one of these guys, Garrett Gardner, great musician, great guy, came over to my place a lot and he started jamming out. And he was a serious musician. And the first thing he said to me, because the term boy band, all of them did not like that term. He said, yeah, everybody's talking about boy band, but the Beatles were the first boy band. Now, we had a lot of discussions about that, because I said, no, the Beatles formed themselves. They were not made by John de Mol. But it doesn't matter who brings you together. It doesn't matter if you were found and auditioned to do to please a group of young girls, because the Beatles were marketed to please a lot of young girls. Basically, a lot of boy bands make pop songs. The early Beatles also made pop songs. So again, I wouldn't call them boy bands. It's where you take it from there. Do you make good pop songs? And the Beatles made great pop songs. As a matter of fact, I think the Backstreet Boys made great pop songs. One Direction made great pop songs. And also, when a band decides to take music seriously and to take more control, like for example the Monkees did, and also One Direction did, they want to become more involved. So in that way, Liam Payne and the other members of One Direction, they deeply cared for music and they focused on good songs. Now, of course, there are always stinkers there. But One Direction made, for example, this record, which is a good album. And my favorite song, The Story of My Life, isn't even on there. They did great stuff to pop. And it's so sad that Liam Payne's life ended so early, because one of his band members, Harry Styles, made great pop albums afterwards. And it would have been great if he had more opportunity and more chance to show off his talents. Sadly missed. Now, another big name with an incredible catalog of music and very diverse. I'm going to be talking about Quincy Jones. The thing is with Quincy Jones, even if I would make an entire video of the same length as this video just about Quincy Jones, I would not be able to comprehend the entirety of his career, because he is like what the Rolling Stones sing about in Sympathy for the Devil. No, he's not a devil, obviously not. I'm not sure if he's an angel either, but he's definitely not a devil. He's a genius. Now, why am I making this comparison? Because in Sympathy for the Devil, they sing about this guy who has been around at the important moments in history. I was around when Jesus Christ had his moments of doubt and fear, made damn sure that Pilate washed his hands and sealed his faith. Quincy Jones is that without the negative input, but in the music industry. He was there. He was there when beauty was created. I was just going through some of the records in my Discogs list, which had his name, and then you see, damn, the arrangement for the Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong record, not the famous one, but another one, done by Quincy Jones, early 60s. This one, gorgeous, well, solo album, Quincy Jones and his orchestra. He did that great. What else? At least two of the brilliant Ray Charles albums. And my favorite of those two is this one. Genius plus soul is jazz. What does it say here? Arranged by Quincy Jones. He's there when Ray Charles made his mark. Not just that, it continues. And I'm leaving out stuff because it's just too much. There was a documentary on Netflix, I believe, about him. I do not, I'm not a great big fan of the way it was made or the technicality because yeah, well, it's my job, so I have things to complain. But it gives an insight in where he was. He started making soundtracks for great films. It's not just any soundtrack. This guy was there. He made great stuff. Sinatra at the Sounds, one of my favorite live records, one of the best Sinatra records. And what do you find? With the Count Basie Orchestra, arranged and conducted by Quincy Jones. Masterpiece of a live album. So many things. But I can't say he made the biggest stamp or mark in history because what he did with Sinatra and Ray Charles and Louis Armstrong and so on is just too remarkable. But he made 3 albums with Michael Jackson that invented Michael Jackson. Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. And these albums are just strikingly good. These are records that defined music for so many years. And I like the music of Michael Jackson. I think he's a genius as well. But he never got back to the level that he had when he was collaborating with Quincy Jones. Take a look at this one. I mean, Want to Be Starting Something, Baby Be Mine, The Girl Is Mine with Paul McCartney, Thriller, Beat It, Billie Jean, Human Nature, Pretty Young Thing, The Lady in My Life. Produced by Quincy Jones. Man, this was one of the greats. The answer to Band-Aid, it's not Feed the World. There was also a great documentary about that on Netflix. I should remember this by heart because it's the America for Africa, USA for Africa. The song with Bob Dylan and Michael Jackson and the entirety, again, produced by Quincy Jones. What a guy! What a hero! I'll continue. I've still 2 more names on my list here, and I'm gonna go to Lou Donaldson, the saxophone player, the important jazz saxophone player. Now, I do not have one of his bigger albums here. I'm relatively new to Lou Donaldson, but I do have one in which he is strikingly gorgeous. This one, Rockin' the Boat. And as a matter of fact, Jimmy Smith plays a Lou Donaldson song here, Pork Chop. What an amazing saxophone player. And the last one to talk, the last one for this video, because of course I have to be leaving out certain artists because way too many artists pass away. But I'm gonna end this off with one of the first jazz albums that I ever bought. And I was so lucky to start out with this one, the Roy Haynes Quartet, because Roy Haynes, the drummer, he also passed away rather recently. And when you explore a new genre, it is so important to find the right records. And I got a tip at Waterloo Square in the Netherlands by Ruud. I've been talking about him. He's a great record seller. more often. And one of those brilliant tips. So this got my love for jazz rolling. Roy Haynes, brilliant drummer and band leader. Sadly, deeply missed. So that is what we leave behind in 2024. Luckily, we still have the music, and let's embrace that. I wish you all the best of luck for the next couple of days. Find some cheer, and a happy new year. Yeah, it's a strange thing to wish after a video in which we talk about loss, but yeah, gotta make that switch because life goes on. Happy New Year.